Frank Lampard got the job. Simon, your immediate reaction to Frank getting the job at Everton. What did you think? A 2.5-year deal, although Everton yet to announce it officially.
Yeah, I mean, despite the fact that we've sort of been running this across the rule over the last week, thinking that it would probably end up with Lampard, it depends what he's learnt, Jim. If he's learnt nothing, I mean, what lessons he can take from Chelsea and Derby are not the lessons he needs to apply at Everton. He has a different dynamic at Everton. So it depends what he's learnt. What he has learnt, it would appear, is he needs a better backroom staff. And Paul Clement being brought in, despite his failings as a manager, you cannot argue with the fact that Paul Clement is a pretty elite coach and a pretty elite assistant manager. So I think that's the first lesson he's learned. I think it's I think there's risk attached to it. I think there was risk attached to all the appointments they were looking at. I think Lampard coming into that environment has the name, has the credentials as a player, as a halcyon sort of outlook, image-based Frank Lampard comes with stardust. But they need someone that really understands how to rebuild a football club on the football side and understands how to get it together. Of course, the first job in hand is to lift the morale, get them past the problems that they're in now, and then look in the summer and see what they're going to do. Donny van der Beek, okay, they're going to nick him off Palace. Perhaps that tells you where Everton are in the scheme of things when you compare them to Crystal Palace, who are bigger in the league at this moment in time. But Donny van der Beek, if you're buying Donny van der Beek that's played for Man United and seeing what he's done there, is not much of an uplift because he hasn't done much. Maybe he's better than what you've got. I worry for it. But Frank Lampard has finally got off his backside and got back into management, so you have to understand the reality of that.
You sound critical of him there.
Well, I am a little bit, because I'm not sure he's got the credentials to go into Everton with a relegation battle on their hands. This time last year, Frank got taken out of Chelsea on the back of a job that he was given, which seemed to me to be strange because they knew the handcuffs they put him under, and the moment it went wrong for the first time in his management, they sacked him, and I felt that was a little bit harsh. Going into Everton with the owner all over the place, a toxic environment, the playing squad not good enough, and a whole hodgepodge of missigned players and badly signed players, to me, is a task. But I think that the task is going to be a challenging one. But I think there's enough in Everton's tank to overcome the fact that there's little left in other people's tanks.
Sure. I disagree with some of what Simon said. I think he's highly motivated, highly intelligent. You know, known Frank for a long, long time. Loves his football. He's a bright lad. He must have learned from the experiences at Derby and Chelsea in terms of different clubs in need of different things. But from a player management perspective, some of the mistakes he made along the way, maybe chastising certain players.
And Everton might be getting him at the right time.
I think it's as Simon said, any appointment at Everton at the moment is a risk. But I think it's a really good appointment in the fact that one of the prerequisites I'd have been is the way your philosophy, the way the team's going to play. I think Frank's shown at Derby and Chelsea that he plays high intensity and good football. And Evertonians, high intensity, they demand it. Not pragmatism, dropping off like some of Rafa's performances when you saw Everton hanging on in games and stuff like that. I think there'll be Paul Clement. I know well, good communicator. He's got lots of experience. Been a number 2 all over the world. He knows how to communicate with players. I think that's a cute appointment. I think they'll do all right. I mean, let's be honest, when you look at what he's taking on, he's got Calvert-Lewin just getting himself back fit, Richarlison back.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good youngsters there who are really like Anthony Gordon's a terrific young talent. Van der Beek will make them better because he gives them a bit more creativity.
Will he? And if it only remains at Van der Beek coming in, that's how it's looking, will they be all right?
I think they will. But the other point I was going to make is that really, it's a no-brainer taking that job because you can't do any worse. They've been awful.
No, you can. You can do worse. You could get them relegated. I don't think you will, but you could get them relegated. And I'm not seeing anything in Frank's arsenal of experience that you can say relates to his circumstances at Everton. The one thing you do when you want to resolve something is you put an experienced person that's experienced in those circumstances in. Derby, despite where they are now, at that time were in ascendancy. They were trying to invest to buy themselves out of the Championship. They were going to utilise some of his relationship with Chelsea to take some of their young players through. So they were going to get out of the Championship was the blueprint. So they were a club trying to move forward. Now we've seen that unwind, right? You go to Chelsea. We know what Chelsea are. Irrespective of whether he had one transfer window ban, they still had an embarrassment of riches of players, right? And all these young players available to him that he'd learnt about at Derby, right? So he had all that available to him. Here he is today, in a car crash. This is a car crash. At what point has Frank Lampard, in his career, besides sitting at a table with Harry Redknapp when he was a young player, batting off fans, being told he wasn't good enough to be in the team. At what point in Frank Lampard's career has he massively walked into an environment where there's adversity smacking him in the face everywhere he turns?
What manager walks to a job that's the same? They're all different, and they all have different dynamics.
Experienced managers that can go to a reference point. I can't reference what you've done on a football pitch because I haven't done it. Right? I can talk about it, I can look at it, and maybe wish I could do it. But if I don't have the experience to do it, when I get into a situation where I've got to make a decision and I don't have the reference manual to go, right, what do I do in this situation?
Yeah, but his job is to get the team playing better and motivate the players that are there. The political aspect, in terms of the communications with the hierarchy and keeping them.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about managing the players, because you're saying talk about them
managing
playing
the
a pressing
players,
game. Maybe they can't. Maybe this group of players.
High intensity doesn't always mean pressing. High intensity means with the ball and without the ball. So you can have a high intensity.
It means work ethic, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it means doing things together as a group. So
what's the stardust here, Danny, that he brings? You're saying that it's Frank. He's going to go in there, back him.
Well, I think if you look at the different extremes of the jobs that he did, when he went to Derby, they sold a couple of their best players, and he got tasked with making do with what was left. They didn't sign many players. He used his nous in the loan market and got a couple of good youngsters in, Tomori and Mount being the two exquisite ones from Chelsea, who got them into a playoff with a squad that shouldn't have got there, Simon. Because I remember doing a bit on it at the time, and that wasn't a team in ascendancy. It was a team who'd failed the year before and then got rid of their two best players. So he actually punched above his weight in getting them to the playoffs. So that was and dealing with players in terms of younger players, coaching them to be better on the training pitch. Yeah. It's a different job than going to Chelsea, where the players don't really need that much coaching because they're superstars. They need motivating. And I think he probably made some mistakes along the way. But overall, that first season he was in at Chelsea, he got a tune out of those players, and they played some bloody good stuff. And yes, he did have good players, but the fans were well on board.
But they finished fourth that season.
Yes.
The previous season they finished third under a manager they didn't want to play for.
Yeah, but at the beginning of the season, when he was, because a lot of people said he shouldn't have got the job because he'd only been at Derby a year.
He shouldn't have got the job because he wasn't
still
experienced
got
enough.
them. You would class that as a success.
But Dan, he got them to
an FA Cup.
He took
final.
them backwards, right? He took them back from third in the league under a manager they didn't want to play for to fourth in the league under him to an FA Cup final that they threw away.
Yeah, you're doubting this more and more, aren't you?
You're manipulating it a little bit. If you're talking about one game,
I'm just dealing with the facts.
A Champions League
sentiment.
But if you're a chairman of a club, as you have been, and if you're a manager, you've been third year club, but your manager still gets you in a Champions League position, gets you to a cup final. Yep. You're kind of saying that's not a bad season. I know Chelsea have won titles in the past, but for a young manager to go in with no transfer market. Nobody knew he was going to be able to cope with the level of players because he's a young man himself, and some of them he'd even played with. So that was a risk in itself.
So what's he going into here, though, Danny? I mean, he goes in now. Say they get Van de Beek and only Van de Beek by 11 tonight.
I think
has he got enough for Everton to survive?
Yes. Yeah. And if not, then he's failed, hasn't he? Miserably. But I don't think he will. I think they've got more than enough to stay up.
And you're confident about that. I mean, you are confident. You're batting back everything that Simon's saying.
Not
here,
everything. No, he makes some good points. You can't sit here and be unrealistic and say it's not a risk. It is. And I understand what you mean, Simon, in the fact that, ideally you move someone into a position who's been there, done that.
If this wasn't Frank Lampard, right, let's be honest about it. When distill it down, we all like
Frank.
That's
what it comes down to.
If it wasn't Frank Lampard and you went, right, what's he done at Derby? Right, what's he done at Chelsea? He got Derby to the playoffs, which they should have actually won, by the way, because they did the hard yards by overcoming Leeds, right? But you get past that, you get a situation where you now go into the Premier League, which you shouldn't have got because your experience wasn't there to get it. You got it, you got binned out of it. So then you look at that and go, why are you giving him a job? You're giving him the job because it's Frank Lampard. And because you believe that Frank Lampard has a philosophy, he talks well, he's the educated footballer, he looks the part, he sounds the part, he's been the part in every other aspect of his life. Eventually, he's going to be the part in managerial dugout. It's a risk. Now, every bloody one of these guys is a risk.
You said the same when Gerrard went to Villa.
I did. And the more I see of Gerrard in the Premier League, because I watched Gerrard from afar. I haven't watched Frank from afar. I've watched him in English football because it's more in my periphery than Scottish football was. And the more I've seen of Gerrard, and we'll see what Gerrard does, the more I see of him, the more I see the statesman in him, the more I see the natural leader. That don't make him a top manager, because when it comes to being a top manager, he's still got to overcome those that are really tactically adroit.
I'm talking about the reasons why somebody gets a job sometimes.
You're right.
Isn't always because of what's gone on the CV.
But if you're Everton right now and you've made a whole
they've gone down the road
Koeman, Silva, Ancelotti, Benitez, Martinez, and now you're on your sixth incarnation. It's like Doctor Who. You're on your sixth incarnation of the same manager. You're sat there going, I better be damn straight here because I've got this so wrong that I'm actually looking at a club that could get relegated. That's how wrong I've got it.
But
Okay.
sorry, just quickly though. What if you went down the road of going down to someone else who's got the fantastic CV, which has failed them in the last three appointments they've made? This is outside the
Depends
box
when you're
thinking.
reading that CV. If you're reading Ancelotti's CV, you go, great CV, but why is he coming to Everton? Because clearly we all knew within inside the game.
My point is they've
that he was
tried
coming for
that.
money.
They've tried that. They're going a different way. A young, up-and-coming, hungry manager.
At the worst time for them.
And
Listen-
Simon, they had to go for Frank. If it was Vitor Pereira, there'd be blood in the streets.
No, they didn't have to go for either one of them. They had to have a very expansive list of people, an embarrassment of riches, with an owner that's prepared to spend his way out of things and has an inordinate amount of money and go, right, let's open it right up and let's have a proper look at what we've got and what we need.
Well, we're gonna get
I
a
think he's
proper
what
look.
they need.
Yeah, we're going to get a proper look at Frank's Everton very soon because they're going to be live on talkSPORT 2 next Saturday. Everton against Christian Eriksen's Brentford in the FA Cup 4th round at 3 o'clock. That's live on talkSPORT 2 next Saturday.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.